So just like 2019's final, we get to see South Africa versus England in a playoff game, although this one not the final for 2023, instead the semi, the winner progressing through to face the winner of Argentina versus New Zealand. And throughout this preview, we'll be looking through at the lineups with the minimal changes that both sides have made, their key players, looking at their previous fixtures, and then at the end a prediction of who we think will be walking away with the win. But we will start with South Africa. Now, if you did watch a video that I did last week announcing the South African lineup, you could watch that one because it is identical to what they had in their last game up against the French, making 0 changes for the first time since before the last Rugby World Cup. Springboks going identical, so that means Steven Kitshoff, he will be starting at number 1. He had a decent performance in their last contest up against France, got a couple turnovers won, but also did get penalised a few times, so if he can get that fine margin right, could be very dangerous. In this game, number 2, Bongi Mbonambi, had a bit of a shoulder injury, but he is now back and rearing to go for this week. And then number 3, Frans Malherbe, a very physical man. He was going head-to-head with Cyril Bailly last week. Now, up against Joe Marler in the lock-in duo. Eben Etzebeth starting at number 4, at the moment a Player of the Year contender with the way he's been able to put in the shifts for the Springboks throughout 2023. And then number 5, Franco Mostert, brilliant when it comes to that line out, and also made 13 tackles last week, so he was putting in the hard yards, got subbed relatively early in that second half, but that is pretty much because he completely emptied the gas tank. The loose forward trio, Sia Khaleesi will be starting at number 6 as the captain. Number 7, they have gone with Peter Steph Toy once more, and then number 8, it was the question mark, would it be Duane Vermeulen, would they go with Jasper Wiese? They have stuck with the veteran Duane Vermeulen to start this game. At number 8, the backline unchanged. Number 9, Kobus Reinach, and number 10, Biamani Lebok. So similar to what we saw in the game up against France, South Africa want to start fast, attack hard. They were able to score 3 early tries in that contest of the quarterfinals, and they'll be looking to do just that in this game up against England. Now, interestingly, a stat for this Rugby World Cup, England have not conceded a try within the first 20 minutes of any of their matches. Now, there is only one other side to be able to do that exact same feat, and that is the All Blacks. South Africa, they have conceded 1 try in their first 20 minutes, and also Argentina actually only conceding the 1. So the top 4 sides in this Rugby World Cup competition currently, they have only conceded a total of 2 tries combined throughout all of their Rugby World Cup games. So we know that both of these teams, if they are able to score early, that will certainly give them that nice bit of momentum. Number 11, a man who can certainly score a try or 2, it is Cheslin Kolbe. He showed that in the 2019 World Cup final. Number 12, Damien Dialendi, and number 13, Jesse Kriel. A combination that worked well in the last contest. Some expected to see a change, maybe of Esterhuizen, or maybe Kane Moody even getting the chance, but the Springboks backing what has worked, going with these exact same 2. Number 14, Kurtley Arendse, and then number 15 to close out the starting lineup, it is Damien Willemse for the English. And their starting lineup, also minimal changes. In fact, they have got the only change across all 46 men, and that is at fullback for the English. But in the front row, Joe Marler at number 1 coming into the starting lineup to replace Ellis Genge. Number 2, it is Jamie George, and number 3, once more, will be Dan Cole in the locking duo, Maro Itoje. And number 4, I felt he was one of the standout players in that game up against Fiji, and him versus Eben Etzebeth is something we don't get to see too often, but when we do get to see it, it is definitely worth the wait. Number 5, they have gone with George Martin, who did come off the bench last week. So Ollie Chisholm now finds himself in the reserves in the loose forward trio, Courtney Laws, and number 6, number 7, Tom Curry, and number 8, Ben Earl. So nothing really different for the English and there either. For the 9-10, it is Alex Mitchell at number 9 with Owen Farrell starting at 10. He will also be captain for this contest. I mentioned it in my original lineups video. One of the most unlucky English players across this whole World Cup has been George Ford. The fact that since Owen Farrell's come back, he's been put down the pecking order, even though he's been playing some brilliant rugby. It's a bit of a shame for him, but hopefully he's able to close out this game well. We didn't get to see him make his way onto the field up against the Fijians, but he will be hoping for a few more minutes in the semi-final. Number 11, Elliot Daly, so sticking with the veteran out on the left wing. In the centres, it is Manu Tuolangi at number 12 and number 13, Joe Marchant, two men who got themselves tries in the quarterfinal up against Fiji, number 14 Johnny May and number 15 to replace Marcus Smith. It is Freddie Stewart. Now Marcus Smith, he looked like he'd been hit by a truck at the end of that contest up against the Fijians. He had taken some huge bumps. He had some bandages on his head. He was bleeding. And they've decided for this game up against the Springboks that they will bring Freddie Stewart back in. Now that might be a little bit of an area that the Springboks look to try and exploit, mainly because Freddie Stewart, he hasn't had a huge amount of minutes over the last couple of weeks. So maybe that is where the Springboks can find some little gaps. But now looking at the key players for these two sides, if we had to pick out three Springboks who are going to be absolutely crucial in this contest, the first one is of course Ebenezabeth. With what he was able to do last week, bringing that physicality, also scoring himself a try later on in the fixture, and in the end that was the difference between the two sides. But someone else who made a massive difference in terms of that scoreboard last week was Cheslin Kolbe. Not only did he score himself a try, but he also managed to get that charge down of the Thomas Ramos kick, which stopped the chance of an extra 2 points, which in the end was the difference between the two sides. So Etzebeth, Cheslin Kolbe, and then the third player to watch out for in this contest, I honestly feel, will be Mani Libbok, because he has been such an attacking threat. I think early on in this contest, partnered with Reinach, we're going to see a lot more attack from the Springboks than we may have seen if it was de Klerk and Pollard as that 9-10. Now those two men going to be coming off the bench to add that stability near the end of the game, but Mani Libbok, watching out for him on attack, and also hopefully manages to bang over his kicks. For the English and the key players to watch out for, I believe that midfield combo of Manu Tuolangi at 12 and Joe Marchant at 13 is going to be absolutely massive here for the English. They're going head-to-head with Damien Dialendi and Jesse Creel, so no matter what, it's going to be extremely entertaining. But Tuolangi's strength, partnered with that speed of Joe Marchant, could be very entertaining here. And the other key player for the English, probably got to be Maro Itoje at number 4, because if he can get a couple turnovers, one in the breakdown, now he is a little bit susceptible of giving away penalties if he gets it slightly wrong, but if he can get it right early in this contest, get that momentum back in favour of England, because the last thing that they want is a repeat of 2019 where the South Africans, they slowly just kept on building up that momentum, and then in the end, the Springboks winning themselves their Rugby World Cup. But looking through now at previous fixtures for these two sides, for the South Africans, they started off their Rugby World Cup with the win over Scotland, 18 points to 3, so a little bit of a lower scoring game, but they were still able to score themselves two crucial tries, one of Peter Steph and one of Kurtley Arendse. The next game was not low scoring, 76 points to 0 over the Romanians in round number 2. Their third game was up against the Irish, losing at 13 points to 8. That is the only loss that the Springboks have had throughout this Rugby World Cup competition, and that is the way they want it to stay right through to the end of the comp. In their fourth game, it was up against the Tongans, 49 points to 18, and then they did have the rest week in between that contest and the quarterfinals, coming back strong, beating the French, 29 points to 28. It was a game that could have gone either way, but in the end, the South Africans, they dug that little bit deeper, they fought that little bit harder, and they make their way through now to this match up against the English. But England, they started off their Rugby World Cup campaign with a victory, 27 points to 10 over Argentina, who are also still in this competition, and there is a chance we see those two sides play, whether that be in the final or whether that be in the third place playoff game. They won at 27 points to 10. Throughout that game, they were unable to score themselves a try, but they had 3 drop kicks, which was the most we have seen throughout this Rugby World Cup campaign. Their second game was up against the Japanese. They won at 34 points to 12. Third game up against the Chileans, bit more one-sided, 71 points to 0. So that's a little bit similar to what we saw for the Springboks for their big win over the Romanians. Now I should mention in that contest, Henry Arundel scoring 5 tries. That is the only game we have seen from Arundel throughout this Rugby World Cup. He's currently sitting second equal in the leading try scorers of the competition. But unless he gets any more game time, more than likely that is where he's going to be staying. And the last game of the group stage for the English, it was up against Samoa. They did win at 18 points to 17 in a gritty, grindy performance to just help them get over the line by their 1 point. Their quarterfinal, they did manage to beat the Fijians by 6 points, 30 points to 24, a little bit of a similar scoreline to what we did see when those two sides played just before the Rugby World Cup, where Fiji were able to get themselves their first historic victory, but England wanted to right those wrongs and get in the win by 6, giving them confidence heading forward in this competition. But there's still a lot that they'll have to change from that game to this one up against the Springboks if they want a good chance of walking away as the victors. But now we are up to that stage of trying to predict who walks away with the victory here. Now, it would be very easy for me to say my score prediction is 32-12. Of course, that is a number of significance when it comes to these two sides playing off, but I honestly feel it's going to be a lot closer than that. The Springboks showed in their game up against France that they are more than capable of scoring tries early on, and like I mentioned, England yet to concede a try within the first 20 minutes of any of their Rugby World Cup games. I see that stat being broken in this game up against the Springboks, definitely with the attacking threats that the Springboks do have in their starting lineup. But then I also see the English being able to score within those first 20 minutes. In fact, we could see a little bit of a repeat of what we saw between South Africa and France in the quarterfinals. But for me, South Africa, they will get themselves the victory, 30 points to 22. So they win it by 8. I feel like that would be a relatively high scoring game, but so far throughout the quarterfinals, we actually saw a lot of high scoring contests taking place. This one also has the potential of being extremely low scoring, similar to what we saw between South Africa and Ireland. But I honestly feel with the amount of attack that both of these sides have on offer, we are going to see tries here. It's going to be entertaining, but in the end, I think the BOK will be that little bit too strong for this English side. But I do thank you all very much for tuning into this preview. Do let me know your score predictions in the comments down below. We will be doing the live commentary of the match on the channel as well, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.